Hey, nappy friend, welcome back to our nappy little club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight we are drifting back, far back, to a world of humid air, stone temples, and the soft scratch of a brush on bark paper. We are traveling to the heart of the Mayan classical period, a time of immense intellectual achievement, staggering cosmic beliefs, and, if we're being honest, a startling lack of modern plumbing. You are about to become a royal scribe, a keeper of history, a painter of gods. And while you probably wouldn't survive the pressure or the constant threat of being blamed for a poorly worded prophecy, here in our little club, you are perfectly safe and wonderfully relaxed. So, before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? And feel free to leave a comment, letting us all know where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's always so comforting to know our sleepy community spans the entire globe. So, dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey because you're now officially in Nappy Community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our Nappy family where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. The first thing you feel is not the humid air, thick and heavy like a damp blanket, nor the cool stone floor against your bare feet. The first thing you are aware of, here in the pre-dawn stillness of your chamber, is the weight in your palm. It's a familiar weight, a grounding presence in the dark. You are Ah Maxam, a name that links you to the sun, and this object is one of your most sacred tools. It is the polished, yellowed tooth of a jaguar. It rests in the center of your hand, its root broad and sturdy, its tip tapering to a wickedly sharp point. The enamel is smooth, worn down by generations of use, yet it still catches the faint moonlight, filtering through the high, narrow opening in your stone wall. This tooth is not for violence. It is for something far more delicate. It is your eraser, your tool of correction. You trace its elegant curve with your thumb, a silent ritual you perform each morning before the city of Yachilan awakens. It's a reminder of the power you wield and the precision required to do so. In a world where history is written on fragile paper made from the bark of a fig tree, there is no room for error. A gentle, steady scrape with this jaguar tooth can lift a mistaken stroke of black ink, a misplaced glyph from the gesso-coated surface, a small, miraculous act of unwriting. No digital undo button here, just a very sharp tooth and a silent prayer not to tear the delicate page. You're of noble blood. Only those from the highest echelons of society are permitted to learn the complex language of the glyphs, to master the more than 800 signs that capture everything from the dynastic lineage of the king to the precise movements of Venus in the night sky. The masters at the court and the scholars of a future you cannot possibly imagine will debate the nature of your role. Are you a mere instrument, a hand that gives form to the king's words and the priest's calculations? Or are you a shaper of narratives, an artist who chooses which angle of a jaw makes a ruler look more divine, which glyph best captures the nuance of a prophecy? You know, in the quiet of your own heart, that the truth lies somewhere in the space between you are both a conduit and a creator. Beside the jaguar tooth on your woven reed mat lies the rest of your toolkit. Your brushes, with handles of polished bone, are tipped with the finest, softest hairs from a squirrel's tail, perfect for the sweeping, calligraphic lines of the main glyphs. Another much stiffer brush made from coarser hair is for applying the base coat of white lime plaster to the bark paper. In finely carved conch shells, your pigments await. The black, a deep and permanent soot made from burning pine resin, and the red, a vibrant ochre used for dates, titles, and sacred emphasis. These are the colors of your world, the very ink of history. Your personal codex, a long strip of bark paper, folded like an accordion, rests beside them, its blank pages a silent, intimidating promise of the day's work to come. Outside, the first stirrings of the jungle begin. The distant guttural roar of a howler monkey echoes through the canopy, a sound so familiar it is part of the silence. Soon the priests will begin their morning chants from the top of the Great Pyramid. Soon the city will awaken. But for now, in this small, quiet moment, it is just you, your tools, and the weight of a jaguar's tooth in your hand. The weight of history, waiting to be written. You rise, tucking the jaguar tooth into a small leather pouch at your waist. The stone is cool underfoot as you step out of your chamber into the narrow corridor. The air immediately thickens, a familiar cocktail of damp earth, blooming night, flowers and the distant smoky promise of cooking fires. You walk towards the central plaza, your bare feet making no sound on the worn limestone. The city of Yaxchilan is slowly coming to life, draped in a low-lying mist that softens the edges of the towering pyramids and intricately carved stelae that stand like silent stone guardians of your people's history. You see the faint silhouettes of priests on the high temples, their arms outstretched to greet the nascent sun, their chants a low, resonant hum that vibrates through the very stone beneath you. Your destination is a long, low building adjacent to the royal palace. It has no grand staircase or imposing facade. Its importance is more subtle. This is the Popol Na, the council house, and within its most sacred wing lies your workplace, the Ah Maxam, the house of glyphs. Historians of a distant future will argue whether this was a dedicated guild hall or simply a specialized room within the palace complex. For you, the distinction is meaningless. It is the heart of memory, the loom upon which the fabric of time is woven. As you pass beneath the carved stone lintel depicting the patron god of scribes, a wise old deity, with a pen behind his ear, looking remarkably like a stressed-out librarian, the air changes. The raw, wild scent of the jungle gives way to the sacred aroma of burning copal incense. The smell is sharp, piney, and deeply cleansing. It's the official fragrance of divine work, meant to purify the space and appease the gods. To you, it simply smells like another Tuesday. A young apprentice, no older than 12, is dutifully swinging a clay censer, his face a mask of solemn concentration. You give him a slight nod, a silent acknowledgement of his task. He's the one who grinds the charcoal for the black ink, a job that leaves his hands permanently gray, a mark of his low rank in this hallowed space. The main chamber is long and relatively dim, illuminated by a few high windows and the flickering light of several tallow lamps. The humidity is still present, but the thick stone walls keep the worst of the oppressive jungle heat at bay. Along one wall, other scribes are already at their stations. There's old Balaam, the master scribe, who has been documenting the Hak, king's lineage since before you were born. His hands are gnarled, his back permanently stooped, but his brush strokes are as steady and fluid as a river. He glances at you over his spectacles, a rare and precious luxury made from polished quartz, and gives a grunt that could mean anything from good morning to your last glyph for the Venus cycle was slightly misaligned. You've learned not to ask for clarification. You move to your own workspace, a low wooden table polished smooth by years of use. Here you perform your morning ritual. You unroll your toolkit, laying out the bone brushes, the conch shell palettes, and the precious jaguar tooth. You take a small, hollow reed and blow gently on the surface of your table, clearing any stray dust particles. A single speck of dirt could ruin a day's work, mixing with the ink to create a blemish on the sacred page. You then take a lump of dried pine resin and carefully begin to burn it over a small, controlled flame, catching the black soot on a cool ceramic plate. This will be your ink, fresh for the day. It's a tedious process, but store-bought is simply not an option. Historians will marvel at the longevity of this ink, how it remains a deep, profound black even after 1,000 years of jungle damp. They won't see you coughing slightly in the resin smoke, trying to get the consistency just right. Your task for the day sits waiting, protected by a thin cotton cloth. It's a new codex commissioned by the the king himself. It is to be a history of his reign, linking his victories in battle to favorable astronomical events. It's part history, part propaganda, and your job is to make it look like divine will. You pull back the cloth. The first few pages are already complete, detailing the king's ancestry with a dizzying array of names, dates, and emblem glyphs. Today, you will begin the section on his greatest military victory. The pressure settles upon you, a familiar weight. This document will be read by other nobles, by rival city-states, and it is believed by the gods themselves. Every line must be perfect. Every glyph must be imbued with the proper authority and grace. In the House of Glyphs, you are not merely writing. You are giving a voice to the cosmos and a face to power. The day has begun. You are finding your rhythm. The freshly made soot ink is a perfect, deep black, and you are applying it to the gessoed bark with a steady hand. You are detailing the emblem glyph of a lesser lord who paid tribute to Yaxchilan, a complex sign involving a water lily and the head of a cormorant. It's methodical work, calming in its precision. The low hum of the House of Glyphs is a familiar comfort, a soundscape of quiet scratching, the occasional soft cough, and the rustle of bark paper. For a moment, you feel like a simple artisan, a craftsman focused on his trade. It is a pleasant and deeply misleading feeling. The feeling is shattered, not by a sound, but by a sudden absence of it. The gentle scratching around you ceases. Old Balaam's rhythmic breathing hitches. A shadow falls over your table, long and impossibly dark, eclipsing the lamplight. You don't need to look up to know who it is. The scent of expensive plumeria-infused oil and the faint clink of jade ornaments announce the arrival of the Naj, the king's chamberlain. He is a man who walks in a bubble of terrified silence. You slowly, deliberately place your brush on its ceramic rest and rise to your feet, bowing your head. You keep your eyes fixed on the floor. To look a man of his station directly in the eye would be a grave insult. Kian, his voice is smooth, devoid of warmth, like a river stone, polished by 1,000 years of cold water. The divine lord, the holy Ahau of Yaxchilan, Kinich Yat-Ak II, has considered your work on the codex of his glorious reign. You feel a bead of sweat trace a path down your spine. This could be very good or very, very bad. There is no in-between when it comes to royal feedback. He is satisfied with the lineage, the chamberlain continues, drawing out the word satisfied, as if it tastes unpleasant. But he has a specific vision for the depiction of his triumph over the Lord of Bonampak. He pauses. The silence stretches, thick and heavy. You can hear your own heartbeat in your ears. His divine majesty commands this, the chamberlain says, his voice dropping into a formal, poetic cadence. You are not to show the vulgar struggle of the battle. The clash of obsidian and shield is for the unlettered masses. You are to paint the moment of divine alignment. Show the instant the great serpent star crested the southern ridge, its light anointing our Lord's spear. You will not paint the captive's fear. You will paint the jaguar's shadow falling upon his defeated soul. Let the glyphs sing of celestial mandate, not of the mud and blood of men. And with that, he turns. The shadow recedes. The expensive floral scent dissipates. He is gone. The gentle scratching and rustling in the room slowly resume, but they sound different now, hesitant and fragile. You remain standing for a long moment, the chamberlain's words echoing in the chamber of your mind. You finally sink back onto your stool, the simple calming task of the cormorant glyph, now seeming like a distant memory from a simpler life. You look at the blank section of the codex reserved for the Bonampak victory. It seems to mock you with its pristine whiteness, the jaguar's shadow falling upon his defeated soul. How do you paint that? It's not an instruction, it's a riddle wrapped in a poem. This is the part of your job that future historians poring over your finished work will never fully grasp. They will debate whether you were a mere scribe or an author, an artist with agency. They won't understand the paralyzing terror of a vague metaphor delivered by a man who could have you, sacrificed on a whim. This isn't creative freedom. It's a tightrope walk over a pit of crocodiles. You know what is being asked. The king doesn't want a historical record. He wants a theological statement. He wants to transform a messy, brutal skirmish, which you heard from a palace guard involved more tripping in the mud than glorious spear thrusts, into an undeniable act of God. Your job is to provide the divine proof. The serpent star is Venus, you know that much. Its position would have to be perfect, a detail that will require a lengthy and likely very condescending consultation with Ixcan, the notoriously grumpy high priestess of astronomy. But the jaguar's shadow, that is a problem for your soul. It will require a mastery of symbolism, a delicate interplay of color and line that suggests something metaphysical, a feeling, an essence. This is why you are a royal scribe and not just a wall painter. And you know, with a sinking feeling in your stomach, that the answer will not be found in the soot of your ink pot. It will require something more, something vibrant, something powerful, something the color of life and sacrifice. It will require the perfect red, and that thought, you know, is what will keep you staring into the darkness of your chamber long after the howler monkeys have fallen silent tonight. The king's cryptic command has unsettled the very air in the house of glyphs. The other scribes pointedly avoid your gaze, a mixture of pity and relief on their faces. It is your problem now, not theirs. You know that the standard red ochre from your palette, the earthy, brick-colored pigment you use for dates and titles will not suffice. It is the color of clay, of common things. To capture a jaguar's shadow falling on a soul, to depict a celestial mandate, you need a red that bleeds with significance, a red that sings. You need cinnabar. This is not a simple matter of walking to the market. Cinnabar is not a commodity. It is a sacred substance, a paradox of creation and destruction. It is mercury sulfide, a mineral mined from deep within the earth, and its vibrant, almost luminous scarlet color is believed to be the very essence of life, blood, and the sun. It is also, as the master alchemists who prepare it know all too well, lethally toxic. Handling the raw mineral or inhaling the fumes during its preparation can lead to a slow, creeping madness, a trembling of the hands, and a wasting away of the body, a fact that makes it all the more precious and its use all the more potent. Historians will later find traces of mercury in the bones of elite Mayan rulers and scribes, sparking a debate about whether it was from ritual use or accidental poisoning. For you, this is not an academic question. It is a calculated risk. Your journey takes you from the relative order of the House of Glyphs to a small secluded workshop at the edge of the temple district. This is the domain of a man known only as Kin, the obsidian breath. He is the sole keeper of the cinnabar recipe, a secret passed down through generations. The air here is thick and acrid, catching in the back of your throat. Kin is an old man, his skin unnaturally pale, and his hands, you notice, possess a slight but constant tremor. He greets you with a knowing look, his eyes dark and ancient. The Divine Lord seeks a truth beyond the telling, he says, his voice a dry rustle. He doesn't need to ask why you've come. Word of the king's poetic command has clearly traveled faster than you did. The blood of the mountain is required. You present him with the formal glyph-inscribed tablet authorizing your request. He barely glances at it. Instead, he gestures for you to follow him into the dim interior of his workshop. The room is a chaotic collection of grinding stones, clay pots, and mysterious bundles of herbs. On a heavy stone table, the process is laid bare. He shows you the raw cinnabar, a chunk of rock veined with a startling crystalline red. It looks like a stone that is bleeding. He explains the process, his voice low and reverent. The stone must be crushed into a fine powder, a laborious and dangerous task. The dust is heavy, and the smallest inhaled particle is a seed of poison. This powder is then mixed with a binding agent, the sap of a specific tree, he explains, gesturing vaguely towards the jungle, though he won't name it. This is the part of his craft that is pure alchemy. Future archaeologists will analyze the binders in Mayan murals, identifying plant gums and clay proteins, but they will never know the precise combination, the ritual chants, and the specific phase of the moon required for Kin's formula. He grinds a small amount for you, his trembling hands surprisingly steady as he works the pestle in the mortar. He does not offer you a mask. Complaining about the toxic dust would be like a fisherman complaining about the sea. It is simply the nature of the work. You hold your breath as much as you can, a futile gesture against the invisible danger in the air. He carefully scoops the resulting powder, a substance of impossible, vibrant redness, into a small, lidded ceramic pot. It is perhaps no more than a thimbleful, but it is more precious than a sack of cacao beans. It is the price of a small farm, the cost of a life. Use it with reverence, scribe, Chaikin warns, his dark eyes locking onto yours. This is not paint. It is the heart of a god, captured in stone. It gives life to the page, but it can take life from the painter. You bow, accepting the pot with both hands. It feels warm, almost alive. As you walk back towards the house of glyphs, you can't help but glance at your own hands. Do they tremble? You hold them out. They are steady. For now, you have the color of blood, the color of power, the color of the sun itself. Now you just have to paint a shadow with it. A bit of irony that is not lost on you. You are about to use the brightest, most vibrant color in existence to depict the essence of darkness. The king you reflect would probably appreciate the poetry in that. With the pot of sacred cinnabar safely stored, another, more cerebral challenge looms. The king's command was explicit. Show the instant the great serpent star crested the southern ridge, its light anointing our Lord's spear. This requires a level of astronomical precision that is far beyond your purview. Your expertise is in dynastic history and divine myth, not the complex mathematics of the cosmos. To get this right, you must consult the keepers of the celestial calendar, a visit you undertake with a certain sense of intellectual dread. The observatory is not what a future generation might imagine. There is no great telescope, no rotating dome. It is a simple, elegant structure at the highest point of the city, a building with carefully placed windows and doorways designed to align with the rising and setting of key celestial bodies on specific dates. It's a building that is, in itself, a giant astronomical instrument. Here, the priests of the stars, the Akinov, spend their nights charting the heavens, their work a meticulous and sacred dance of observation and calculation. You find the high priestess of astronomy, Ix-Can, on the observatory's flat roof, her back to you as she stares at a series of crossed sticks set up at the far end. These are her sighting devices, simple yet remarkably effective tools for measuring angular distances in the sky. Ix-Can is a woman as old and weathered as the stone she stands upon, her face a web of fine lines, her eyes possessing a sharp, unsettling clarity. She is known for her brilliance, her piety, and her complete lack of patience. For anyone who doesn't understand the difference between a synodic period and a sidereal period, you wait for her to acknowledge you, a silence that stretches for a full minute. Finally, without turning, she speaks. The star you seek is not a star, scribe. It is a wanderer, and it does not anoint. It witnesses, you artists and your flowery language. Her voice is sharp, cutting through the humid air. You approach cautiously, explaining the king's command, As you speak, she turns, her dark eyes narrowing. She scoffs at the phrase, "Jaguar's shadow." Leave the soul shadows to the poets, Akin. The sky deals in truth. The divine Lord won his victory on the day 9/15/6/14.6 in our long count. You know this. The serpent star, which your grandchildren will one day call Venus, was indeed the evening star, visible after sunset, but its position relative to the southern ridge would have been... She pauses, glancing at the sky as if she can see the celestial paths laid out in the broad daylight. Tenuous. An artist could make it work. A mathematician would call it a convenient truth. This is the core of a debate that will fascinate future scholars. How much of Mayan astronomical recording was pure science, and how much was political retrofitting? Was a king's coronation timed to coincide with a celestial event, or was the celestial event later discovered to have conveniently coincided with the coronation? Ixcan's cynical comment suggests the truth is a flexible, negotiated thing. She leads you inside, to a chamber whose walls are covered in glyphs not of kings but of numbers, bars and dots. The elegant Mayan system of mathematics stretch from floor to ceiling. This room is a library of cosmic cycles, a record of solar and lunar eclipses, of the 584-day cycle of Venus, of the 780-day cycle of Mars. It is a dizzying, overwhelming display of intellectual rigor. She points to a section of a codex, one far older and more worn than your own. It is the Dresden Codex, or at least a faithful copy of it. One of the few pre-Columbian books that will survive the coming centuries, a priceless key for future epigraphers. Here, she says, her finger tracing a line of glyphs. The tables of Venus. On that date, it appeared after a period of superior conjunction. It was returning to the sky, a rebirth, a sign of renewed power. She looks at you, a flicker of something that might be understanding in her sharp eyes. That is your story, scribe, not the precise angle over a ridge. That's just geography. The story is in the timing. The king's victory was not just a victory. It was a cosmic echo of the serpent star's own rebirth. It was fated, predestined. The universe itself declared his triumph. She has given you a gift far greater than a simple star chart. She has given you the narrative. The king's command was poetry, but Ixcan has given you the theological bedrock on which to build it. It's a far more powerful and convincing argument. The alignment wasn't just a pretty picture. It was a fundamental truth of the cosmos, a pattern repeating itself in the heavens and on the earth. You thank her, bowing lower than you did for the chamberlain. She merely grunts and turns back to her crossed sticks, her mind already back among the stars. As you leave the observatory, you feel a new sense of purpose. You are no longer just illustrating a vague metaphor. You are now charged with creating a page where mathematics and myth become one. A page that will show for all of history that the king's victory was not a matter of chance, but of cosmic, inarguable destiny. The thought is both terrifying and exhilarating. A few days later, a sense of quiet focus has returned to your work. The consultation with Ixcon provided the intellectual framework you needed, and you have spent the last 2 days meticulously planning the layout for the Bonampak victory. Page. The composition is complex, a delicate balance of glyphs, figures, and astronomical symbols. You are so absorbed in your task that you barely notice the arrival of a junior functionary from the Royal Archive. A young man named Pakal with wide, nervous eyes. He is carrying a flat, woven basket, and he approaches your table with the hesitant air of someone delivering bad news. He clears his throat. Master Scribe Akin, he begins, his voice barely a whisper. The master of the archive sends his compliments. During the recent reorganization of tribute records from the subjugated territories, this was found. He carefully places the basket on your table and lifts the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of cotton cloth, are several brittle, blackened fragments. They look like pieces of burnt bark, which is precisely what they are. But as you look closer, you can see the faint, ghostly traces of colored pigments and the unmistakable lines of glyphs. It is what remains of a codex that has been deliberately burned. It is from the library of the former Lord of Bonampak, Pakal whispers, confirming your suspicion. Most of their histories were purified. These fragments were stuck to the bottom of a tribute chest. He bows quickly and scurries away, clearly wanting nothing more to do with the cursed artifacts. You are left alone with the ghosts on your table. You know what purified means. It means erasure. When Yachilan conquered a rival city-state, it wasn't enough to defeat their armies and take their tribute. You had to conquer their history. The burning of a rival's library was a standard, brutal part of the process. It was a way of saying, your story is over. Your gods are silent. Your lineage is a dead end. From now on, our history is the only history. You have recorded such events yourself using a standard glyph that combines the signs for fire and library. It is a clean, abstract symbol for a profoundly violent act. But you have never been confronted with the physical result. Gingerly, using a pair of wooden tongs, you lift one of the largest fragments. It is incredibly fragile, crumbling at the edges. The heat of the long-dead fire has warped it into a concave shape. On its surface, you can just make out a figure, painted in a faded turquoise. It's a scribe, like you. He is seated, a brush in his hand, his face turned towards a series of glyphs you can no longer read. The fire has consumed his words, leaving only his silent, ghostly image. A strange, cold feeling creeps into your heart. It is a mix of pity and a deep, unsettling sense of shared identity. This man, this anonymous scribe from a conquered city, was your counterpart. He spent his days in a room much like this one, smelling the same resinous incense, feeling the same pressure to get the lines just right. He recorded the history of his own king, his own gods. He believed in the importance of his work, in its permanence. And it all ended in smoke. You look from the burnt fragment to your own pristine, half-finished codex. The white gesso gleams in the lamplight, a stark contrast to the scorched ruin in the basket. The history you are so carefully crafting, the glorious, divinely mandated victory of your king, is the very event that led to the destruction of this other man's life's work. Your codex begins where his ended. This is a truth that will echo through the ages. The Spanish, when they arrive in a future you cannot imagine, will do the same on a catastrophic scale, burning thousands of Mayan codices in their zeal to erase a culture they do not understand. They will leave only 4 behind. 4 books out of a vast and vibrant literary tradition. The discovery of these fragments on your table is a small personal preview of that great forgetting. You stare at the fragment for a long time. There is a debate among the high priests about the nature of the coup, the soul force that resides in all things. Some argue that it remains even after physical destruction. Looking at the ghost scribe of Palenque, you wonder, can a story truly be erased, or does it linger, a whisper in the ashes? With a sigh, you carefully place the fragment back in its basket. You will not speak of this to anyone. This is a dangerous, sorrowful thing to possess. It's a reminder that history is not a serene progression of facts, but a battlefield. It is written by the victors, and the first casualty is always the loser's story. As you pick up your brush again, the fresh black ink feels different, heavier. The lines you paint no longer feel so permanent. You are writing on what you now understand is the most fragile substance in the world, the skin of a tree, and the memory of men. The encounter with the burned codex leaves a subtle pall over your work for days. The weight of history feels heavier, more personal. To clear your head and seek a different kind of perspective, you decide to do something you rarely do. You leave the ceremonial center of the city. You walk past the grand plazas and towering pyramids, beyond the stone residences of the lesser nobles, and head towards the sprawling, chaotic, and wonderfully vibrant marketplace that serves the common folk of Yaxchilan. The transition is immediate and overwhelming. The rarefied air of the House of Glyphs, with its sacred incense and respectful silence, is replaced by a cacophony of sounds and smells. The air is thick with the scent of grilled maize, chili peppers, tropical fruit, and the earthy smell of thousands of people. You hear the sharp cries of vendors hawking their wares, the squawking of caged turkeys, the babble of a dozen different regional dialects, and the constant rhythmic slap, slap, slap of women shaping corn dough into tortillas. It's messy, loud, and gloriously alive. As a noble, you are insulated from this world, but not immune to its energy. People give you a wide berth, their eyes respectfully lowered, a testament to the power of your station and the fine cotton of your tunic. Your destination is a stall near the edge of the market, shaded by a broad canvas awning. Here, an old man named Itzam sits surrounded by mounds of dark reddish-brown beans. He is a cacao farmer, one of the many who travel from the fertile lowlands to sell his precious crop. Cacao beans are the currency of the Mayan world, used for everything from buying a pot to paying tribute. But they are also the substance of a sacred drink, xocolatl, a bitter, frothy beverage reserved for the elite. Like you are here under the pretense of inspecting the quality of the beans destined for the royal court, a plausible excuse for your excursion. Itzam, his face as wrinkled and brown as the beans he sells, greets you with a deep, respectful bow. He doesn't speak the high, poetic language of the court, but a rougher, more practical dialect. You ask him about the harvest, about the rains, the usual inquiries. He answers in short, direct sentences. The rains were good. The pods were heavy. The gods were pleased. And it's this last part that catches your attention. The gods were pleased, you ask, your curiosity piqued. Which gods do you pray to for a good harvest? He looks at you, a flicker of confusion in his eyes, as if the question is absurdly obvious. The Jacob, of course, he says, referring to the rain deities, and the great maize god, Hunhunapu. We give them thanks. We burn a little copal. We leave them the first, best beans from the harvest. His description is so simple, so direct. It's a transaction. We give you this, you give us that. It's a world away from the complex, multi-layered theology you spend your days documenting. In your codices, the maize god is a tragic hero, a figure of cyclical death and rebirth, his story intertwined with the hero twins, the ball game, and the journey through the underworld of Xibalba. For Itzam, he is simply the one who makes the corn grow. This disconnect is a subject of endless fascination for future archaeologists. They will debate the elite-commoner divide in Mayan religion. Did the farmers and the priests worship the same gods in the same way? Or were there two parallel systems, one of a complex, literate state religion, and another of a more practical folk tradition focused on agriculture and daily survival? Listening to Itzam, you feel you are witnessing this very divide in real time. You ask him, have you heard the story of the maize god's journey into the underworld? You return to the house of glyphs with the earthy scent of the market still clinging to your clothes. The contrast is jarring, a reminder of the two worlds you straddle. Back at your table, you find that the quiet, focused atmosphere has been broken. A quiet but intense argument is unfolding near the main archive shelves, where the master codices are stored. The participants are two of the most respected scribes in the city, your own stoic mentor, old Bialam, and a visiting master, scribe from the allied city of Palenque, a man named Kak Tili, known for his flamboyant headdress and even more flamboyant calligraphic style. They are hunched over a newly finished stela, a tall, flat stone monument destined for the main plaza that celebrates a marriage alliance between the royal families of Yaxchilan and Palenque. The argument, you soon realize, centers on a single, seemingly innocuous glyph. You approach quietly, feigning interest in a nearby text to overhear their debate. The glyph in question is part of the long formal title of the new bride from Palenque. It is the accession glyph, the symbol that signifies a ruler taking power. The problem is that there are two accepted variants of this glyph. One shows a figure sitting on a cushion, a straightforward depiction of enthronement. The other, more ancient and abstract version shows a hand passing a torch, Balaam, a staunch traditionalist, is arguing for the torch glyph. It speaks of the passing of lineage, the sacred fire of our dynasty, he rasps, his voice firm. It is the ancient way. It connects this union to the first fathers. He is making an argument based on historical precedent and theological weight. Kayak Tiliu, the Palenque scribe, shakes his head, his feathered headdress wobbling dramatically. Ancient, yes, but ambiguous, my old friend. The cushion glyph is clear. It is modern. It is political. It shows her power is seated and secure now, not as some inherited flame. Our lords in Palenque prefer this clarity. It leaves no room for misinterpretation by our rivals. He is arguing for political expediency and clarity of message. This is not a simple disagreement over aesthetics. It is a microcosm of a larger cultural tension, a debate that future epigraphers will spend entire careers unraveling. Is the primary purpose of writing to maintain sacred tradition or to project contemporary political power? The choice of a single glyph can subtly shift the meaning of an entire monument, elevating one aspect of a ruler's legitimacy over another. It can signal whether a dynasty sees itself as rooted in ancient myth or in present-day military and political strength. The two masters go back and forth, their voices low but charged with professional pride. Cocktelu points out that the cushion glyph has been used in all recent monuments in Palenque. Balam counters that Yaxchilan, being the more powerful partner in this alliance, should dictate the terms of the historical record. And Yaxchilan tradition calls for the torch. You watch, fascinated. This is the real unglamorous work of history-making. It's not just about divine inspiration or secret knowledge. It's about negotiation, debate, and sometimes pure stubbornness. The final monument, which will stand in the plaza for centuries, its message seemingly monolithic and eternal, will be the result of this very human, very political squabble. A tourist in a far-off millennium might take a picture of it, admiring its artistry, never guessing the intellectual war that was fought over a single symbol. Eventually, a compromise is reached, brokered by the master of the archive. The main text will use the modern clear cushion glyph, satisfying the political demands of the Palenque delegation. But in the decorative border of the stela, a smaller, more ornate version of the ancient torch glyph will be included, a subtle nod to tradition that placates Balam. It is a masterful act of diplomacy, a footnote that saves face for everyone involved. The incident is a profound lesson. You look at your own codex at the king's glorious victory page. You chose a specific variant for the glyph for capture, one that emphasizes the captive's divine humiliation rather than his physical defeat. Was that your artistic choice, or were you subconsciously influenced by the king's poetic command? Where does your hand end and the will of the state begin? The argument over the accession glyph reminds you that you are not working in a vacuum. Every stroke of your brush is part of a larger conversation, a constant negotiation between the past and the present, between the sacred and the political. The glyphs are not static symbols with fixed meanings. They are alive. Their significance shifting with context and interpretation. And you, the scribe, are a warrior in this quiet, bloodless war over meaning. Your battlefield is a page of bark paper, and your weapons are ink, paint, and a deep, unsettling understanding of the power of a single well-placed word. The rainy season is approaching. The air grows heavier each day, and the sky often bruises with the promise of a storm that never quite breaks. This is the time of year when the city turns its attention to one of its most sacred and terrifying spectacles, the ritual ball game. It is not a sport in the way a future world would understand it. There are no leagues, no cheering crowds in the modern sense. The mood is one of deep religious solemnity. The game, known as pits, is a reenactment of the cosmic struggle of the hero twins in the underworld, a story you know by heart and have illustrated many times. It is a contest between order and chaos, life and death, and its outcome is believed to have a direct impact on the prosperity of the city and the turning of the seasons. From the high terrace of the House of Glyphs, you have a clear, if distant, view of the great ball court, a long eye-shaped alley flanked by two massive sloping stone walls. Today, you have been given a chillingly specific task. You are not merely to record the outcome of the game. The king has commanded you to observe the movements of the players closely, to see if their actions on the court echo the omens described in a particularly dark and esoteric prophetic text. The text in question is a difficult one, a codex of divinatory, almanacs that link specific dates with prophecies of war, famine, and dynastic turmoil. One passage, which the high priest has marked for you, speaks of a time when the black jaguar of the underworld will stumble in his own court, and the ball, the symbol of the sun, will be held by the hand of the unworthy. It's classic prophetic language, dense, metaphorical, and open to a terrifying range of interpretations. Your job is to be the king's eyes, to see if this ancient prophecy is unfolding in the movements of the players below. Two teams enter the court. They are not athletes, but captured lords from a recently defeated city-state. This is the game's most brutal aspect, a detail that will be hotly debated by historians. Was the game always played by captives destined for sacrifice? Or was that only for the most high-stakes ritual occasions? Looking at the grim, resigned faces of the players, you have your answer for today. They are dressed in elaborate, heavy padding around their hips and waists, and their bodies are painted with symbols of death and the underworld. The game begins. The ball is a 9-pound sphere of solid, unforgiving rubber. The objective is to keep it in the air, striking it only with the hips, thighs, or sometimes the shoulders. Using hands or feet is forbidden. The sheer athleticism is breathtaking. The players move with a strange, brutal grace, slamming their bodies against the stone walls to rebound the heavy ball, their movements powerful and desperate. From your vantage point, you try to detach yourself, to see it not as a life and death struggle, but as a living text. You watch the player designated as the Black Jaguar, a tall, powerful lord who was the war captain of his city. He moves with a defiant pride, a dark grace that befits his title. You follow his every move, comparing it to the glyphs in the park, prophetic text laid out before you. The game is a blur of motion, a violent ballet. The heavy black ball thuds against padded hips and stone walls, the sound echoing across the silent plaza. The sun beats down, making the air shimmer. Then it happens. The black jaguar player leaps, attempting a spectacular move to send the ball through one of the stone hoops high on the wall, an incredibly rare and decisive play. But as he lands, his foot slips on the paved stone, slick with humidity. Doesn't fall completely, but he stumbles, his body twisting awkwardly. He has stumbled in his own court. A collective gasp, almost inaudible, ripples through the watching priests and nobles. It is a small thing, a simple loss of footing. But in this supercharged atmosphere of ritual and prophecy, it feels like a cosmic tremor. Moments later, the game ends. Another player, a lesser lord of no real distinction, manages to trap the ball against the wall with his hip. The game is over. The sun has been held, not by a great warrior, but by a man who was simply in the right place at the right time. The unworthy. A chill runs down your spine, a feeling of cold dread that has nothing to do with the approaching rain. You have seen it. The prophecy has been fulfilled, right there in the dust and sweat of the ball court. The stumble, the unworthy hand. The echoes are undeniable. Your own hand trembles slightly as you pick up your brush. How will you record this? A simple record of the game's outcome is no longer sufficient. You have to capture the omen. You have to use glyphs that convey not just the physical actions, but their terrifying supernatural significance. You must write that the black jaguar was not merely clumsy, but was unbalanced by the lords of Xibalba. You must write that the victor did not win through skill, but was chosen as a vessel for the omen. You are no longer just a scribe. You are a prophet, a reader of signs, and you are the one who must now deliver this dark message to the king. A message that may well be interpreted as a harbinger of war, a sign that the gods are displeased, a shadow falling over the dynasty. The weight of this knowledge is heavier than any stone monument. The game is over, but for you, the true ordeal is just beginning. The air in the royal audience chamber is thick and still, heavy with the scent of burning copal and the unspoken weight of power. You stand before the raised dais, your head bowed, the newly inscribed section of the codex held before you on a carved wooden tray. This is the moment of judgment. You have spent the last day carefully choosing your glyphs, crafting the narrative of the ball game not as a sporting event, but as the fulfillment of a dark prophecy. Now you must present this interpretation to the two most powerful people in the kingdom, the Ahau, Kinich Yat Ak II, and his principal wife, the royal queen, Ix Wak Tun. The king is a formidable presence, his broad shoulders adorned with a cape of iridescent quetzal feathers, his headdress a towering creation of jade and shell. He radiates an aura of immense restless energy. But it is not the king you are most nervous about. It is the queen. She sits beside him perfectly still, a silent, enigmatic figure. While the king is the sun, the embodiment of military and political power, the queen is the moon, representing the mystical ancestral heart of the dynasty. Her lineage is arguably more ancient and pure than the king's own, a fact that gives her immense influence. Historians will later piece together her importance from monuments where she is depicted performing sacred bloodletting rituals, a role reserved for the most spiritually potent individuals. They will see her as a cornerstone of the kingdom's stability. To you, in this moment, she is simply terrifying. Her face is an impassive mask, her expression unreadable. Her gaze, dark and penetrating, is fixed on the codex you hold. The king may read the words, but you know she will read the spaces between them. The king's chamberlain takes the codex from you and presents it to the royal couple. The king leans forward, his eyes scanning the freshly painted glyphs. You can see his finger tracing the section describing the ball game. You hold your breath. You watch for any flicker of emotion, a tightening of the jaw, a narrowing of the eyes. He reads your interpretation, the black jaguar's stumble, the unworthy victor, the unmistakable echo of the ancient omen. He is silent for a long time. The only sound in the chamber is the soft crackle of the incense burners. You have seen this with your own eyes, scribe? The king finally asks, his voice a low rumble that vibrates in your chest. I have, divine lord, you answer, your own voice, sounding small and thin. The patterns were as the ancient text foretold. The king leans back, his expression unreadable. He turns and speaks to the queen, his voice too low for you to hear. It is a moment of excruciating tension. You are acutely aware that your life, or at least your career, hangs on her silent judgment. Did you overstep? Did you read too much into a simple stumble? Was your interpretation an act of piety or an act of dangerous presumption? The queen does not speak. She simply lifts her hand and points one long, elegant finger at a specific glyph on the page. It is the symbol you chose to represent the unworthy player who won the game. It is an obscure, negative glyph, one that implies weakness and a lack of divine favor. Then she turns her head and looks directly at you for the first time. Her eyes are not angry. They are not pleased. They are assessing. It feels as if she is looking past your skin and bone, directly into the shivering uncertainty of your soul. Her gaze is a physical weight. It is the gaze of a woman who has officiated sacrifices, communed with ancestors, and whose silent approval holds the kingdom together. She is judging not just the accuracy of your work, but its spiritual resonance, its political implications, its very essence. After a moment that feels like an eternity, she gives a single, almost imperceptible nod, just once. Then she turns her gaze back to the codex, her silent judgment rendered. A wave of relief so profound it almost makes your knees buckle washes over you. The king sees her nod, and his posture relaxes slightly. He turns back to you. Your eyes are sharp, Akin, he says. His tone is neutral, but in the court, neutrality from the king is a victory. You have recorded the warning of the gods. We will consult the priests on the necessary rituals of appeasement. He makes a gesture of dismissal. The chamberlain retrieves the codex, and you are led backwards out of the chamber, never turning your back on the royal couple. As you step back into the light of the plaza, you feel dizzy, drained of all energy. You have survived. Your interpretation has been accepted as truth. It is now official history, a recorded omen that will dictate policy, justify rituals, and perhaps even rationalize a future war. You stood before the silent gaze of the Queen and were not found wanting. You have successfully navigated the treacherous currents of prophecy and power. As you walk back to the relative sanity of the House of Glyphs, you realize the true nature of your job. You are not just a historian, you are a weaver of reality, and your thread is a delicate, dangerous, and intoxicating thing. The acceptance of your prophetic interpretation has elevated your status, but it has also deepened the complexity of your great work. The King's Codex is no longer just a history of his reign. It has become a sacred document, a map of the dynasty's delicate dance with the cosmos. Now you arrive at the heart of the project, the centerpiece of the entire narrative, a full-page illustration of the myth of the hero twins Hunahpu and Palenque. This is the foundational story of your people, a sprawling epic of life, death, and resurrection. It is the story of two clever, magically gifted twins who descend into the dark realm of Xibalba to outwit the malevolent lords of the underworld and avenge the death of their father, the maize god. Their ultimate victory and ascension into the heavens as the sun and moon is the ultimate promise of Mayan belief, that even in the face of death, there is the hope of rebirth. Your task is to capture this grand saga on a single page. It is the most challenging and prestigious commission a scribe can receive. You spend days in preliminary sketches using charcoal on treated deer hide. The composition must be perfect. You decide on a classic narrative structure, a circular flow that leads the eye from the twins' descent on the right, through their trials in the center, to their glorious ascension on the left. At the heart of the page, you draw the climax of their story. You depict them in the dark house, one of the deadly trials of Xibalba, surrounded by the sneering skeletal faces of the death gods. Hunahpu, the more serious twin, is shown with his head detached, a result of a trick by a bat demon, while his brother Palenque cleverly fashions a replacement head from a squash. A moment of brilliant, almost comical trickery in the face of ultimate horror. It is this blend of the grotesque and the clever that defines the myth, a detail many future interpretations will miss, sanitizing the story into a simple, heroic tale. They won't capture the earthy, sometimes bizarre humor that is so essential to your people's worldview. Now, it is time for the paint. You are using a full palette, a rare luxury. The black soot ink for the outlines, the precious cinnabar for the sacred elements, the sun, blood, the twin ceremonial scarves. You also use a vibrant turquoise and a deep yellow ochre, colors associated with paradise and divinity. You begin with the underworld, painting the monstrous, bloated forms of the Zibalban lords. You give them bloated bellies, rotting teeth, and necklaces of human eyes, just as the oral traditions describe. This is not meant to be gratuitously gory. It is a precise theological statement about the nature of decay and the horrors the twins must overcome. Then you turn to the twins themselves. You paint them as young, athletic, their bodies marked with the symbols of their divine heritage. You use the precious cinnabar for the dot of blood on Palenque's cheek, a mark of his successful bloodletting sacrifice. You take extra care with their faces, capturing Hunahpu's stoic resolve and Palenque's clever, almost mischievous expression. They are not just gods in the making. They are relatable, resourceful heroes. The most difficult part is the final scene, their ascension. How do you paint resurrection? How do you depict a mortal becoming a celestial body? You choose to show them rising on a column of smoke, their bodies transforming as they ascend. Their skin begins to glow, their forms becoming less distinct, more ethereal. Hunahpu becomes the sun, a perfect circle of radiant yellow and red. Palenque becomes the moon, a crescent of soft silvery white, a pigment made from crushed seashell, mixed with a special clay. As you work, you lose all track of time. The house of glyphs fades away. The sounds of the city disappear. It is just you, your brushes, and the world of myth taking shape under your hand. You feel a deep connection to the story, to the generations of storytellers who have passed it down. You are not just illustrating a tale, you are participating in it, channeling its power onto the page. You are painting the victory of light over darkness, of life over death. It is the core belief that gives meaning to everything, to the king's reign, to the ball game's grim ritual, to your own fragile existence. Finally, after days of intense, focused work, it is done. You lean back, your body aching, your eyes straining in the lamplight. Before you is not just a page in a book. It is a cosmos in miniature, a story of hope rendered in pigment and faith. The faces of the hero twins seem to stare back at you, their painted eyes holding the secrets of the underworld and the promise of the dawn. You have given them form, but in the process, they have given you a sense of your own place in the grand cyclical story of creation. The work is finished. The final brush stroke, a tiny, perfect dot of white on the moon's surface in your rendering of the hero twins' ascension, has dried. The codex lies open on your table, a long, magnificent serpent of bark paper, gleaming with the vibrant life you have poured into it. The air in the house of glyphs is still and silent, save for the gentle flicker of the last remaining lamp. Everyone else has long since retired to their chambers, but you could not leave, not until it was complete. You feel a profound sense of both emptiness and fulfillment. For months, this codex has been the center of your universe. It was your first, thought upon waking, your last puzzle before sleep. It contained the king's ambition, the queen's silent power, the astronomer's cosmic truths, and the dark whispers of prophecy. Now it lies before you, a finished object, separate from you. With a reverence bordering on tenderness, you begin to fold it. You follow the original creases, carefully closing the accordion-style pages one by one. The stiff paper makes a soft, satisfying crackle with each fold, the sound of a story settling into its final form. The front page, depicting the king seated in glory, finally rests on top of the pile. The codex is no longer a sprawling narrative, but a compact, dense brick of history. You tie it closed with a soft cord of treated jaguar hide. You run your ink-stained fingers over the smooth wooden covers. There is no title, no name. And this brings you to the final silent question. Should you sign it? It is a quiet debate among your peers, and a question future scholars will endlessly ponder. Where is the artist's mark? On rare, magnificent ceramic vessels, a master painter might include a tiny, elegant glyph phrase, Utsib, or his writing, painting, followed by their name. It is a subtle claim of creation, a whisper of identity. You have seen it on a lintel in a nearby temple, the signature of the master carver tucked away in a corner, a small mark of pride. You could do it. On the inside of the back cover, a space no one would look at for generations. You could paint your own name, glyph, Akin, a sun sign, a humble acknowledgement of your part in this grand creation, but you decide against it. Your role was not to be the author, but the vessel. Your hands were guided by the will of the king, the wisdom of the priests, and the weight of tradition. To sign it would be to claim a piece of the glory that belongs to the Ahau and the gods. Your legacy is not your name. Your legacy is the work itself. The anonymity is part of the sacred duty, and yet you feel a sense of ownership, a creator's pride that is entirely your own. This book is your child. It holds your late nights, your steady hand, your fear, and your relief. So you give it a secret name, a title known only to you. You look at the cover, and in your mind, you name it Ba'akil Kinich, the bone of the Ars, Sun Lord, a name that speaks of its permanence and its purpose. It is your silent, final act of authorship. You think back to the burnt fragments from Bonampak, the ghost of that other scribe whose life's work turned to ash. You pray to your patron god that your codex will meet a better fate. You imagine it being unrolled 100 years from now than 200, its colors still vibrant, its story still telling of the glory of Yaxchilan. You imagine a future so distant you cannot even picture it, where someone might find this book and wonder at the hands that made it. They will not know your name, but they will know your skill. They will feel the power of the jaguar's shadow you painted, and they will see the celestial mandate in the stars you aligned. Your hands, stained with black and red, will one day be dust. Your eyes will close for the last time. Your name will be lost, another glyph on a crumbling family monument. But the ink, the cinnabar, the line, they might just last. They might carry your spirit, your choices, and your quiet devotion through the long silent corridors of time. With a final deep sigh of exhaustion and peace, You carefully place the codex into a specially made wooden box, its interior lined with soft cotton. You close the lid. The story is now contained. Your work is done. Your part in the great telling is over. And for the first time in a very long time, your mind is quiet. The weight is lifted. The pressure of prophecy, the burden of history, the king's commands, and the queen's gaze, it has all dissolved into the quiet satisfaction of a task completed. You can feel the tension leaving your shoulders, a slow, gentle unwinding in the stillness of the night. The single lamp on your table sputters softly, its flame dancing, casting long, gentle shadows that sway like sleeping giants. The world, outside the house of glyphs, is utterly silent now, blanketed by the deep star-dusted velvet of the jungle night. The howler monkeys have sung their final echoing song to the moon, and even the insects have softened their chorus to a low, rhythmic hum. You rise from your low stool, your limbs feeling heavy and wonderfully tired. You walk slowly to the high window, a narrow slit in the thick stone wall. The air that drifts in is cool now, washed clean by the evening's humidity. It carries the scent of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine, a soft, natural perfume that signals the world is at rest. You look out, past the dark, silent pyramids that stand like sleeping mountains, and up towards the sky. The moon, the one you so carefully painted, hangs full and serene, a disk of pale, tranquil light. It casts a silvery sheen on the tops of the ceiba trees, making them look as if they are dusted with frost. There is nothing more to do, no more glyphs to decipher, no more pigments to grind. The story is safe in its box, dreaming its own epic dreams. Your only task now is to rest, to let go. You feel the coolness of the stone floor beneath your feet, a grounding sensation that connects you to the deep, steady heart of the earth. You imagine your own thoughts slowing down, becoming as smooth and quiet as the polished stones around you. Each breath you take is a little slower, a little deeper than the last. Inhale the cool, jasmine-scented night. Exhale the last remnants of the day's effort. You are a part of this quiet. You are not just observing it, you are woven into it. The gentle lamplight, the soft night air, the silent, sleeping city. They are all a part of you now. You have earned this peace. You have etched a piece of eternity. And now you are free to drift in the gentle, timeless current of the present moment. Your mind grows wonderfully fuzzy at the edges. The sharp lines of thought soften and blur, like ink bleeding into soft paper. There is only the feeling of calm, of safety, of a deep and profound rightness with the world. You have